Welcome to the AI for Career Success video overview by Curt Robbins. We're experts at AI coaching and helping professionals like you and your employees upskill in AI.
Today, we're digging into a really significant development in the world of AI infrastructure. It's a multi-billion-dollar agreement between Meta and Amazon. And what's fascinating, based on the reporting by Emma W. Thorne on LinkedIn, is how this deal points to a fundamental and pretty surprising shift in the kind of hardware that's going to power the next generation of artificial intelligence.
So here's how we're going to break it down. First, we'll cover the specifics of the deal itself. Then we'll get into the unexpected and critical role of the CPU. After that, we'll explain the key concept driving all this, which is called agentic AI. Next, we'll look at the sheer scale of Meta's strategy here, and we'll wrap up with the bigger implications for the future of AI computing.
Okay, let's start with the agreement. You have to understand, this is so much more than a standard hardware purchase. It's a major strategic commitment between two absolute titans of tech, and it really signals a new way of thinking about AI infrastructure. Here's the core of it. Meta has locked in a 3-year, multi-billion-dollar deal, and the key detail is that it's specifically to use Amazon's Graviton's central processing units, CPUs, to run its massive AI operations. That's a huge capital investment in a piece of hardware that, frankly, has been in the shadows of its more famous cousin for a while. And that right there brings us to the central puzzle of this whole thing. For the last several years, almost every conversation about AI hardware has been dominated by GPUs. This deal, well, it represents a really critical turn in that story. So that begs the question, right? In an industry that is completely fixated on the parallel processing power of graphics processing units for training these huge AI models, why would a leader like Meta pour billions into CPUs? The answer, it turns out, is all about how AI itself is evolving. To really get this, we need to remember the different jobs these two processors do. Think of GPUs as the heavy lifters. They're brilliant at doing millions of simple calculations all at once, which is exactly what you need for the brute force work of training a large language model. CPUs, on the other hand, are more like the strategists. They excel at step-by-step logical tasks, the kind of complex reasoning you need not just to build an AI, but to actually operate it in real time.
And that word operate is everything here. This whole investment is being driven by a newer paradigm in artificial intelligence, a concept that's known as agentic AI. This is the real why behind Meta's entire strategy.
So, what exactly is agentic AI? Well, these are AI systems that are always on. They aren't just sitting there waiting for a prompt. They're constantly running, able to reason on their own, make plans, and then execute complex, multi-part tasks. They're operational systems, not just tools for information retrieval, and they work in real time on a global scale. And you don't have to just take my word for it. Amazon's own CEO, Andy Jassy, really validates this idea. He said, agentic AI is becoming almost as big a CPU story as a GPU story. He's pointing out that all that complex orchestration and real-time reasoning, that's fundamentally CPU-intensive work. Matt Garman from AWS reinforces this perfectly. He highlights that the whole industry is moving toward these continuously running systems. These are production AIs, and their need to reason, plan, and operate across the globe fundamentally changes what's required from the hardware. It's not just about raw training power anymore. So once you understand this strategic shift, the enormous scale of Meta's investment starts to make a lot more sense. You can see how it fits into a much broader, more complete strategy for their computing needs. And the scale here is just immense. Meta isn't just dipping its toes in the water. We're talking about a deployment of tens of millions of AWS Graviton CPU cores. This is one of the largest deployments in the history of AWS, and it's all dedicated to powering these new agentic AI experiences. So why the Graviton 5 chip specifically? Well, it's not a random choice. This chip is basically tailor-made for this kind of job. It's efficient enough for an always-on system, and it can operate at a global scale. But the real game changer is its speed. With up to 33% lower latency between its cores, it's just perfectly designed for the kind of rapid, complex decision-making these agentic systems have to do. Now, it's absolutely crucial to put this CPU investment into context. This does not mean Meta is abandoning GPUs. Far from it. In fact, they recently signed deals for combined $48 billion for access to Nvidia GPUs. So what this shows us is a brilliant two-pronged strategy. use the GPUs for the heavy lifting of training the models, and now make a massive investment in CPUs to actually operate them.
All right, let's wrap this up by summarizing the key takeaways from this whole development and what it signals for the future of AI infrastructure. So let's distill this into 4 key points. First, the AI industry is evolving from just training models to operating them as always-on systems. Second, this makes CPUs essential again for the thinking parts of AI, the reasoning and planning. Third, the hardware math is changing. Some analysts think the CPU to GPU ratio could even go past 1-to-1. And finally, all of this signals that AI infrastructure is maturing. It's moving beyond a singular focus on just raw training power. And this leaves us with a really important question for the future. As AI stops being a separate tool and becomes a deeply integrated, always-on part of our digital world, how will this new balance between CPUs and GPUs define the very architecture of our digital infrastructure for the next decade?
Thank you for joining me for this analysis.
This is where we teach you AI and help you get smarter than your competition. If you like these videos, please subscribe to the AI for Career Success YouTube channel. And please, take a moment to like, comment, and share. It really helps us reach a wider audience. Finally, you can use the QR code at the beginning of the video to buy us a coffee or to hire us to coach you or your employees in AI. Thank you.